Indoor track and field, the new polls will be out tomorrow. The women are number 2 right now, behind Arkansas and ahead of Texas Tech, Oregon, and Illinois. The men are now in the top 25 at number 25. Texas Tech is number 3. Cincinnati's number 21, and Baylor's number 22. Carter Cutting, Josh Taylor, Tyler Matthews, and Lucas Bond set a new school record over the weekend in the distance medley relay at Notre Dame. And this week's the Big 12 Championships, Friday and Saturday in Lubbock, Texas. There's so much going on with the runners at BYU. They're gearing up for a title chase right on the heels of cross-country sweeping both conference titles and national titles. Always a pleasure to have the legendary Ed Eyestone, the director of track and field, back on the Wise Guys in a coat and tie and a trimmed mustache.
Wait,
I don't know.
Did the High Council meet tonight? Like, what happened?
No, we had a fun little experience. We got to be honored by the state senate, and
oh wow!
And they just well, you usually when you're meeting with the big boys, you got to be all dressed up, put on the tie on. So
that's
we
nice.
were given a commendation for having won the national championships, which was very nice on their part.
So
yeah.
did G go up with you for that one?
She didn't make it up, but they also honored the ladies, and I'm sure they'll have an opportunity to get up there as well because the women look so good at the national championships as well. First time I think in 20 years that men's and women's program together won the championship. So that was certainly fun for us back in the fall.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
Are we witnessing the greatest era of runners at BYU these last few years?
I hope it just continues to get better and better. But yeah, certainly the last year has been a good one for us.
It seems like we're seeing records fall every week, whether it's in cross country in the fall or now here in indoor season or here early in the spring. What do you attribute the success to? You just getting better guys, or you could become a better coach? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean that's the standard answer, right? Coaching. It's all come down to that. But in addition to great coaching, and certainly we have 6 amazing coaches here at BYU. I think it's kind of a golden era of speed in the world right now, and I think it's a combination. It's kind of the perfect storm of speed. Someone actually called from the Wall Street Journal the other day, and they asked me what was going on. And I said that exact thing. It's perfect storm of speed, because what we have is superior coaching taking place, and then along with that we have new technology. The technology comes in the shoes and the indoor tracks, or the tracks that they're running in. The shoes now are carbon plated, which means they give a little bit
more bounce
to them, and there's also kind of a special foam that gives a little more cushion and a little more resilience. So a combination, just the shoes alone, some people estimate is somewhere to 3 to 4 seconds per mile.
Wow.
And just as an example, I think this year in the NCAA that we have over 100 people who have run under 4 minutes for the mile. Historically, when I first, 25 years ago, if you ran 4 minutes for the mile, you were probably going to make it to the indoor national championships, which is the top 16. So going from 16 to now close to 100 people qualifying, some of that is in the technology of the shoes and the tracks that are now. It's going to probably take a 3:53 mile to make it to the top 16, 3:54 maybe, that would make it in. So part of it is the technology of the shoes and of the tracks. There's also nutrition, I think, is at a higher level, and just the sodium bicarb now that the athletes are taking it, which helps buffer the lactic acid, I think, particularly in the 800, 1500 meters and the middle distances, but even marathoners now are consuming that. So some nutrition. It's all legal. It's until they say it's not. But sodium bicarb, it's just baking soda basically. But in the old days, people would attempt to take it, but the delivery system was not such that you could get away with it. It would cause extreme intestinal
gas, right? It's just like for lack of a better word,
or the other.
That's not good.
That's not good when you're trying to run fast. But now the delivery system of it, just the coating of it and the technology of the nutrition is such that they can take it, and that sodium bicarb can buffer some of that lactic acid that is produced when you're running at high velocity. So I think a combination of the technology, the shoes, and certainly there's a lot more information available due to the internet and due to coaches. So I think coaches, we're all great at seeing what's good and then, plagiarizing what's good and putting it in your program to get the results.
You said something that caught my attention. You're on the phone with the Wall Street Journal talking about running.
Well, I think people are interested, especially when they see 2 world records set, in the mile within 5 days.
Right.
It goes from whatever 3:48 to faster than that within the period of 5 days, and I think that's kind of generated. The mile has always traditionally had that sort of interest, and the fact that it was broken. But that's not the only. We saw a world record set in the 5,000 meters as well, and they will continue to go as we get faster and stronger and continue to do this great sport.
Yeah, but all of this technology is available to everybody. So we're getting faster times. We're seeing records being broken all the time, but BYU as a program seems to have a greater number of people finishing up in the top. And like you said, it's the first time in 20 years that any program in the country has had the men and the women win a cross country championship. So something's going on at BYU in addition to the new technology. That's got to be going on. I would have to attribute it to coaching.
Well, Coach Taylor does a phenomenal job with the women's side, and I've had a lot of help on the men's side, and we've done some really good things over the years, and I think you're going to continue to see that. And success breeds success in any program, and any time you start having that sort of success, then the quality of the recruits that you're able to bring in becomes that much stronger. And when you're able to be successful with the recruits who aren't necessarily the blue chips, then when you do start getting those blue chip recruits in, then really the sky's the limit.
Well, speaking of the chips,
how about 2 blue chips?
You got Charlie Voss and Jane Henne, the top ranked men's and women's runners in the country. They're the AJ Dybantsas of the sport. We know how excited everyone is for these guys. How are you excited for these 2?
Yeah, well, I guess the same thing could be said. The first time in 20 years that men's and women's programs have won the NCAA cross country championship together from the same university. And I hadn't even thought of this, but off the top of my head, it may be the first time that we've both signed the NXN, the Nike Cross National Champions in the same year as well. So that's really good.
And it is the equivalent of signing 2 AJ Dybantsas, right?
Really it is, because it is the high school national champion in our sport. And we're very fortunate that these are local people. Well, local. One is from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the other all the way from Provo, Utah. So
just down the street here.
Yes, and so we're very fortunate just to have the connections to begin with, and that certainly gives us a leg up maybe on the competition. But then we've still got to deliver them, because they have been recruited. Obviously, if you're the top person in your sport, you're going to be recruited by the top programs in the sport. And so for us to end up getting NLIs with them is a great pickup, and in Charlie's case, it'll be a couple of years until we're able to see that, because he's going to be off on a mission. But with Henne, we're very excited to see what she can do.
Well, one thing we've seen with basketball, and you can tell us if that translates, and I think it does, is when you sign the number 1, it's the number 1, but then it's the ones who want to play with the number 1.
Yeah.
So you sign these 2, and even one is heading off on a mission. That's 2 years of you saying we've signed the number 1 recruit. So number 2, number 3, or the new number 1, they know about you.
Well, and last year we were able to secure Danny Simmons, who's now on a mission down in Georgia, and we had a couple of people commit today as well, and I can't comment on them because it's not been made official.
But they're big, right?
But one of the comments was, hey, we're excited because we know that it's going to, by the time Danny gets back from his mission and just the timing of things, that they're going to be teammates together. And that makes you really happy as a coach.
It's in the mission, like there's no place in the world that these athletes could go if they want to serve a mission and come back with coaches that have an understanding how to have somebody come back from a mission and make the transition from a mission back into competitive running and compete on a national and international level than a BYU. That's not a crazy statement to make, is it?
Yeah, we've been around the block a little bit in regard to that, and I had that opportunity close to 40 years ago now, and just the experience myself having gone through that, and the other coaches and many of the other coaches in our coaching staff having gone through that, there's a level of empathy and understanding that I think that goes with that. And I think as a recruit, if that's in your plans, then I think there's a bit of confidence that comes with that, knowing that, okay, these guys are going to know how to get me back. And, the majority of the guys on the men's side have had that opportunity. Not everybody goes, and that's fine. That's a personal decision and obviously a major commitment on their part. And but those that do go, I think, have seen the success we've been able to have with those guys who've taken a 2-year hiatus.
Henry Marsh has a great story about all that he shared with us.
Henry's like, he doesn't know what happened, but coming back, he was way better than he was before.
Faster than when we left.
They were way better than when I went. Yeah.
Well, and our competition would like to say that is our secret sauce. But if it is our secret sauce, then they need to start exploring that as well.
Yeah, send them off to the Peace Corps for 2 years if you need to, right?
I mean, even in the basketball game the other day, there were comments after, well, those guys are older than us, and so, it just comes with the territory. And I think for every success story that we've had for someone taking 2 years off to preach the gospel, there are those that it's a challenge when they come back. Mm-hmm. And Blaine, you experienced that in football. I'm sure some guys just didn't have that same drive, same desire, or they had either lost, in your case, probably lost muscle mass.
Absolutely.
In my case, in distance running, track and field, sometimes we have the opposite issue, just because they haven't been, running 60, 70 miles a week. They do a lot of tracting, a lot of walking
and
around.
A lot of tortillas, beans, and rice.
Exactly.
That can have an impact. The director of BYU Track and Field, Ed Eyestone, is on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. A lot of questions on the stream about the new roster limits. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Before we get to this weekend, has it not surprised you every week now, no matter if it's the men's team or the women's team out competing, that the school record books are just being rewritten so fast?
Yeah, it's caused, some of us with the grayer hair or receding hairline or receded hairline are having to kind of recalibrate. That's the conversation that I'm having with my peers that are in my generation. It's just, it is what it is. We just need to recalibrate and move on. And for the reasons that I mentioned in the past. Yeah. But it's great to see that, we work hard and we are committed, and our athletes work hard, and those records continue to improve, and times get faster and faster, and we like that.
I mentioned, we were talking with Jeff Hansen. You were here listening on the headsets about recruiting and how it impacts recruiting. We talked about that. But what about in other sports? When the basketball team's playing really well and they get a Dybantsa, the football team finishes ranked in the top 15. Does that help recruiting on the track side? Did they pay attention to that at all? Is there any buzz around that?
I've never had a kid commit and say, "Yeah, I'm coming because AJ's signed." I mean, that certainly, and quite frankly, I would say at least 50% of my guys, some are real avid sports fans and follow football, some and basketball. Others are just more into their studies and into their running geekness, and so there's a. But I'm sure the more that the Y emblem is out there, I think the more the people realize, okay, this is a great place to come to school. Certainly in my generation, it certainly was an issue.
Well, we all knew each other and supported each other.
And as an athlete here, we knew the other athletes, obviously, but even as a high schooler, I remember, and growing up in Utah, I really didn't know that much about BYU. I wasn't aware that Clarence Robinson and Cheryl James were the legends that they were at the time, and they really were producing great athletes and preparing them for Olympic Games and things like that. I wasn't really aware of that, and certainly there wasn't as much access. Obviously, the internet didn't exist and whatnot, but I did know that Danny Ainge was doing great things for the basketball team. I knew that Gifford Nielsen at the time when I was in high school was the man, and I was pretty much looking at all of the state schools at the time, and BYU for sure at the time. This is back in the 70s. It was really a golden era in basketball and football at BYU, and I think my thinking was that, well, they've got such good things going on in basketball and football. I'm going to go down there and see if the track program is like that. And lo and behold, I found that it certainly was.
I had an interesting experience this last week. I was traveling with the baseball team on some radio assignments, and a student from Northridge was helping some with the setup. And he looked at me and he goes, what team are you guys? I said, BYU. He goes, BYU? I go, have you ever heard of BYU? He goes, no. He goes, where are you guys from? I go, Provo, Utah. Have you heard of Provo, Utah? And he hadn't heard of that either. And I sat there and I thought, here we are in 2025, and we're in this bubble in Cougar Nation and all that stuff where I ran into a kid in California that had never heard of BYU. And I thought, okay, that was kind of a little humbling a little bit. I'm like, well, of course you know us. And he didn't.
He needs to get out more.
He definitely does.
Although when we are on the East Coast, sometimes they go, Yale. Oh, yeah, we love that.
Yeah, the line looks the same. And having grown up on the East Coast, I'm used to seeing that.
And I used to get Yahoo, but not so much anymore.
The Big 12 championships are this weekend in Lubbock, Texas. What do you expect from the women and Diljit Taylor's group that are now up to number 2 in the top 25?
Oh, they've just got things rolling, and we expect big things. Now, there's a delicate balance that they have to go, because they are so good at the national level right now that Coach Taylor, the smart fox that she is going to have to make decisions in regard to who's going to run at the conference level, and then in terms of doubles and things like that. We certainly will be leaving some points probably on the table, be at the conference level, so that she can go full force at the national level and score as many points as she will. So I would expect that we won't see as many people who could double and get points at the conference level. Probably not. They'll probably focus on individual, maybe one event only, and then sharpen them up for the national meet, so that hopefully they're able to get on the podium.
So they've already qualified per se during the season. They don't need a Big 12.
So the top 16, it's not one of these issues where your conference champion automatically goes to the national meet. It's just a strictly descending order, and right now that descending order list is the top 16 in the country, and so we have a pretty good feel for who will be going on to the national meet. Now it's just a matter of going to the conference meet this weekend, doing it as well as we can, scoring as well as we can, and then with Coach Taylor's case with her distance women, she's just going to be picking and choosing the races that they can do that will help prepare them so that they will be at their finest at the national meet.
When's the national meet in relation to this?
2 weeks. 2 weeks later.
So not much rest time.
Not a lot of time. So now the men just broke into the top 25, which is awesome. But the lead, so the Big 12 this year, you got Texas Tech, Cincinnati, Baylor, all ranked.
Yes.
So what do we see happening there at the Big 12 meet for the men?
Well, kind of the same thing. We're just we're trying to get as many points as we can, and also those people that look like they're going to be advancing, they're going to. We don't have as many men that look like they're going to make it to the national meet, and so we can go a little bit more all in on that. But really, a really good meet for the men would be probably finishing the top 4. And I think on the women, if we pushed all the chips in, I think they would have a chance to win. But I think we are going to try to maximize more so at the national meet than at the conference meet. But I think, having said that, I think we can still finish in the top 2 or 3 and consider it a really good meet.
Yeah. 2 years into the Big 12, this is your second appearance at the Big 12 championships, but the street cred is sky high for BYU already.
Well, I think so, and we've been the program of the year on both the men's and women's side in the last 5 years, I think, and on the men, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and on the women it was 3 or 4 years ago. Program of the year just means you combine your cross-country prowess with your indoor and outdoor performances, and so I think our women have a very good chance of finishing as program of the year again this year, because we've already won it on the women on the cross country side. Now if we can finish on the podium on indoors and close to that again outdoors, then we have a really good shot. And if our men can put it together and hopefully finish in the top 15 or so at the nationals, then that will be good as well.
We're pleased to have BYU Olympian and Director of Track and Field Ed Eyestone on the Wise Guys live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, wiseguys.com. We any place else? That seems like it's like some nights, Ed, we're finding ourselves on 5 continents with the chat people that are listening.
Very cool.
BYU is a global university with a global following. So So as we look into the future, as we like to do, like I know you go, hey, 1 meter at a time, nationals, but we like to look all the way to next fall again, because you got a rare opportunity on the men's and women's side to go defend national championships. You swept it this year. As you look into the fall, first of all, that's crazy cool that you have a chance to go defend 2 national championships. What challenges do you see to go defend that in cross country next year?
Well, I think the challenge is just to, we're graduating, on paper we're graduating, I think 5 of our top 7. So that's a big challenge right there,
yeah.
and reloading. But we do have people in the system, and it's always amazing to me. In fact, the year that we won our first national championship in 2019, I graduated Olympians Clayton Young, Roy Linkletter, and some no other Olympians, but other men who had made it to the nationals. And we were thinking, this is going to be a rebuilding year. Yet we saw people who stepped up, the Danny Carneys of the world and Jake Heslingtons who stepped up. And we are hoping for that same sort of step up as we go into cross country season next year. And we're also having to do what everybody's doing, and that's kind of reach out, look at the transfer portal. And the transfer portal is alive and well for track and field and for cross country, just as it is in every sport. And with the new roster limitations and things going forward, we'll probably be looking at that even more so.
Yeah.
What challenge do those limits? And there've been a number of questions here about it. What does that do to cross country? Your track and field rosters, how significant is it? I read some comments in the paper that you'd made. It's pretty significant, especially for the track team. But what do you see?
Yeah, Doug Robinson from the Desert News did a really nice article on it. I felt like it was very informative a week and a half ago. And essentially, it's just one of the factors with this whole. The NCAA restructuring and the NIL deal is that the roster limitations are going to take place across all sports. Now, in track and field, that affects us even more so because it takes our numbers, which we've been very, very blessed at BYU because I think they've had an understanding, and I think the administration and has understood over the years, and we've tried to help them understand that one of our strengths is just the number of really quality men and women that want to come to BYU just to be a part of BYU and are willing to walk on to BYU and pass up scholarships at other places so that they can come be a part of a very special place, which is BYU. And as a result of that, we could get our quality of walk-ons is so much better, I think, than you see around the country. And this probably just doesn't only apply to track and field. I'm sure it applies to the other sports as well. And so as a result, we've been blessed that our administration has said, okay, we'll let you have up to 60 plus. And some years, I think, in the not so distant past, it's been maybe close to the 70 or roster size on the men and the women, combined or individual. And so now with the new roster limitations, they're bringing that down to 45.
Oh, wow.
45 maximum that we can have. And so we were a little nervous on the men's side. We figured on the women's side we'll probably be okay because of Title IX issues and whatnot. Right. They're going to keep the maximum at 45. And so we didn't know if we were going to get the full amount on the men's side or if they're going to bring it down to 40 or 35 or 30. And at the end of the day, we felt really, we had a little celebration actually in the track office when they said, okay, we're gonna keep it at 45 on the men's side as well. And when you're going from 60 plus down to 45, that still represents nearly a third of your.
And there's always a diamond in the rough in that.
Yeah, 15, there certainly right? is. Yeah. I mean, the guys that we put on Olympic teams and who scored Olympic medals this last go round, very well may have been in that gray area. Now, I'd like to think that the Kenneth Brooks would have made that, but it would have been close, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the sad parts about this whole change is that the ability to develop some of these great young men and young women who just want to come to be a part of something special is going to be limited in the future.
Yeah. You talk about Kenneth Brooks. Dave and I were thinking about Olympics and how fun the Olympic Games were to watch with you there and Diljit there and our athletes there representing BYU. It was an unbelievable treat for all of us to have that. So on this Olympic scene, do you see BYU's runners in the mix for years to come? Is this going to be a regular thing that we're going to see BYU athletes in the Olympics?
We're going to see more of them there. We're going to see more of them there in the future because the two that made this last games, the five that made this last games, I think all of them are young enough to be in a situation that they're going to be going again. Certainly Courtney Wayman and Whitney and Kenneth Rooks and James Corrigan and Rory Linklater, all of them will be at their primes in 2028 in Los Angeles. And think how fun that's going to be. And then we've got other people in the system that are going to be coming through as well. Casey Klinger is certainly someone that would be in that category. And then on the women's side, Coach Taylor has a number of people that are just going to be, prized. This Lexi Halliday is amazing. Is running great times, and when she starts running the steeple again this outdoor season, I think she's going to rewrite the record books in that as well. So we have some great young talent that are still wearing the Y on their chest, and we're excited for that. We want to get them through this year, and then see what the years ahead provides. But I think we're going to have people in the Olympic Games for years to come, and that's part of the tradition, and that's part of the legacy that we have. I'm certainly not the first person to put people on the Olympic team. When I was recruited as an athlete to come here out of high school, Coach Robinson, I was very well aware of the people that he and Coach James had placed on Olympic teams, and so it's just kind of I received the baton from them, and I'm doing the best that I can, trying to stay relevant, and at some point in time I'll pass the baton over to somebody else and they'll keep getting the job done. But we got great talent, we got great young men and young women with great work ethic. We have the technology due to our Nike contract that we're going to have the equipment necessary for them to continue to run fast, and we'll do that's what our job is to continue that success.
10 years ago, you're pretty good. Now think about where you are today, 10 years later. Could you even imagine the status, depth, success of the program from 10 years ago when you were pretty good?
I think you always just kind of have that hope, and you just keep chipping away, and eventually good things happen. And the last year was an amazing year. Really, certainly was an amazing. And are we going to have years like that in the future? I think we are. I think that I have that kind of hope, and we have the young enough talent that's in the pool, and if we can keep on signing NXN champions, national cross champions, then success breeds success, and they're going to continue to work hard. They're going to continue to have that work ethic, and I would like to think that they'll be able to scale even higher heights in the future.
Hey, it keeps you young. You can be here for another 30 years.
Yeah, I don't know that everybody would want me here that long, but
I need to tap into some of this technology. I had some new sneaks the other day, Ed, and Gavin, my son that coaches on the football team, was in the kitchen with me, and I said, "These things are the most bouncy sneaks I've had in years. Really? I feel like I could dunk again in these." And he goes, "Dad, I bet you can't touch the ceiling right now." I said, "I can touch the ceiling. Like, why are you even challenging me?"
I've seen your ceiling. I don't think you should have tried.
Brenda said, "Honey, please do not blow out an Achilles right now."
I was going to say the Achilles.
I wasn't warmed up. It's like, I can touch this ceiling. So I used my bouncy shoes, and I leaped up, and I think I was like 7 inches short of the ceiling. I could not touch the ceiling.
Yeah, that's
what happened to me. But I could use some technology.
Yeah. Use the technology, and maybe we'll just see what happens.
A shorter roof,
divine intervention, bring the ceiling down.
Something has to happen because I just don't have it anymore.
You just have
and Ed and I are the same vintage, so
yes.
But Ed can still run a lot better than I can.
You haven't seen me run lately, Blaine. It's not like the old days where we'd zoom up Mutton Hollow.
Yeah, Ed and I lived by each other when he was up at Weber, and I would go running, and Ed would come bounding up the hill behind me. And he knows I was a dedicated runner, but he would just blow away.
Those were the days.
By me.
Before we get to 5 questions with Coach Ed Eyestone, and then we'll get him out the door. He's had a long day. He lowered the bar, raised the bar up at the legislature, and now has lowered the bar here at the Wise Guys. So, but we're happy to have him. Dr. Ben Brinkman, this is from AB in SC. Dr. Ben Brinkman mentioned in a podcast that some of his nutrition research was being used by the track team. Can you expound more on that? I think you've been talking about it already. Does that ring a bell?
I'm not sure if he has anything to do with the sodium bicarb or not.
Okay.
So, but we do have people in the nutritional arena that our athletes have access to, and I think that all of those things come together.
Here's one from Les. Recruiting talented U.S. distance runners seems to be a hallmark of the BYU program. What is Coach Eyestone's views on recruiting international runners?
You know what? I'm seeing a lot of that now, and it's making Coach Taylor and my job that much more difficult. But we see it in every sport across every way. Our sports teams, basketball teams, are currently the beneficiaries of great international talent. And if there are coaches out there who decide that they want to go that route, I'd certainly understand it, and they're keeping themselves competitive. I kind of take pride in the fact that, I like to work with athletes that are a good fit for the university. And also I like to develop people for the U.S. Olympic team, and I think we can do that. I think if we can get the best, and I think there are just even along the Wasatch Front, the level of talent that we have here, I think we can fill our rosters with really good men and women who want to do the work and get the job done. Now, does that mean I would be opposed to having a couple here or there to kind of keep us competitive, especially when we see rosters that are completely full of international athletes?
Yeah.
That might be something that we explore more so in the future. But when you can have success and do it from people here in the local, then I don't see a problem with that either.
Yeah, if Yegor Demon comes over and starts running, you're getting ready for the Russians.
Exactly. No, it's all good. And there's, you know what? They're fast and good people around this world, and we welcome them all. And would have a great time working with them.
That's cool. 5 questions for Ed Eyestone, presented by StrategySquare.co. 5 things a person should do as they begin a personal running program. This is for the wise guys viewer who's thinking, I really should start jogging for exercise, but...
Yeah.
And so we thought, well, let's hear from the expert tonight on how to get started. So you got 5.
And by the way, Ed's been a contributor to so many different running magazines and things over the years. Like, to have a chance to ask him this is pretty cool, because lots of folks have asked about what do I do to train, what do I do with this, and he's written some phenomenal articles.
I had a monthly column with Runner's World magazine from 2000 until 2010 or 11, and it was great. But at the end of it, I felt like it was a term paper due once a month. You got to get that.
He took it seriously, because I read a lot of those articles.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, man.
All right, so let's start with number 5. We're going to five things.
5 things. Okay.
To get ready.
You know what? Number 1, just get some good shoes. You got to have some good shoes for it. I mean, don't go out in just regular tennis shoes. But if you go to any running, I sometimes call them running geek stores, because I'm a running geek myself, so it's those running stores that are staffed by people who ran in high school and college, and they know kind of what to do to set you up with a good pair of shoes. And it doesn't have to be one brand over another, even though we get a deep discount some of those shoes with the swooshes on them here.
Nike.
But you know what? I think you just go into one of these running stores and you try on as many different shoes as you want. Find some that are comfortable for you, but you should start with a good running shoe to start with, and whether it's Asics or Nike or whatever, Saucony, whatever brand it be, just start with a good running shoe to start with, because there's probably not a quicker way to pick up an injury than not having the right equipment, starting off too hard.
Is there something to this? You go into the big running stores and they measure your foot and they look at your arch and do it. Can they really pick out the best brand or something based on all of these things they do, or are they all kind of across the board good?
Well, there's certain different bells and whistles and whatnot, but I think there are, they many times will look at your basic style. If you're a 4-foot runner, which means you don't really hit your heel, or a rear foot striker, or a pronator or a supinator or whatever, and there are certain shoes that are kind of developed for each type. But if you could just get a basic neutral shoe, I always liked not an overbuilt shoe or an underbuilt shoe, just a neutral shoe to run in. And for myself, it's like a Nike Pegasus is kind of a basic shoe that I would wear, and that seemed to work for me.
Okay, Nike. Okay,
Number 2,
good shoes.
Good shoes. Equipment is important. Number 1. Number 2 is?
I'm a big. I always talk about being a goal setter, and so I think it's kind of important if you're just starting any kind of program to set a goal. Hey, there's a 5K coming up in a month, and you set a goal. Maybe you make that $50 commitment. It is expensive these days for a T-shirt. It's probably $50. I haven't actually paid money for a race for a long time. I haven't run a race for a long time, but I know that the entry fees sometimes serve as a motivator to keep you going. So set a goal. That would be number 2. So look at the calendar, see what's coming up. Is the local haul around the mall, 5K or whatever it is. Pick a goal and put that on the calendar, because that will get you out of bed in the morning and get you active and going forward. I think that's great motivation.
Okay, number 3.
Number 3 is just consistency. That's the thing that I always preach. That's kind of one of my go-tos is consistent competence equals eventual excellence. And so you got to be consistent with this new running thing. You can't just do it once and then take 2 weeks off and then do it again. And by consistent, I don't mean that you have to just start and go from 0 to 1,000 right off the bat. But if you can start and try to get in 3 to 4 times a week of getting out and being active, that's a good start right there. Being consistent and do that for a few weeks, and you'll find that it's easier to run around the block than it was before. So be consistent, do it multiple times a week.
I like that quote. So the quote is consistent competence equals eventual excellence.
Yeah, that C squared equals E squared. I haven't patented that.
You should do it. Put it on a ball or something. Yeah, consistent competence equals eventual excellence.
Yeah. So.
Well, I've got a follow-up question, but I'm not sure if it'll be answered in the next 2, so I'm going to wait.
Okay, so number 4 then.
Okay, so be consistent. I guess what I would say is add in eventually some sort of speed work in there to make it a little less boring. Okay, and I don't care if you're.
What does that mean? Speed work.
Speed work could be just, instead of just going out and plodding and just going out. Okay, I'm going for 30 minutes and I'm going to get around. Then and after a time, after that first couple 2, 3, 4 weeks, when you now can do that and be comfortable doing that. And while you're getting to that stage, don't be afraid if you have to stop and walk on occasion. There's nothing that says you have to be moving at all times. You're getting out, but as you're moving up to that point where you can run 3 or 4 miles at once without having to stop, then that next step that would probably be, let's add a little speed, a little variation in it, because that's going to, one, just make it less monotonous and make it more fun, okay? And the easiest way to do that is a workout that they call fartlek, which just means speed play in Swedish. And it just means, run fast for 2 minutes, run slow for 2 minutes, run fast for 2 minutes, run slow for 2 minutes. So you can pick any variation that you want to do on it, maybe a 3-2-1. You're going to run hard for 3 minutes, easy for 3 minutes, hard for 2 minutes, easy for 2 minutes, hard for 1. And then as you just do a little speed work every now and then.
Okay.
Marathoners do that, right?
Yeah.
Like you would think, well, not a marathoner. They're going to go out and run 26.2 miles, but they do interval work and speed work,
and
right?
Division I athletes do it as well. I was on the road this last week getting this DMR team qualified for the national meet, and they set a school record, did a phenomenal job. But since I wasn't going to be around, and Ryan Waite, my assistant coach, was going with me as well, the workout that I gave him, do a 10-5-3-2-1 step down fartlek, where they ran really hard for 10 minutes and probably about 440 mile pace for that 10-minute period, and then they rested for 5 minutes and they ran even faster for that next 5 minutes, and then they took a 5-minute break. Then they ran even faster for 3 minutes, and then they took a 3-minute break, and then 2, and then 1. And it's really good workout. My marathoners do it as well on occasion. And but yeah, I think add in some speed work every now and then. It doesn't have to be a fartlek, it can be a tempo run or whatever, but there's a whole menu of workouts that you can do to add a little variance to your running.
All right, before we get to number 5, I want to shout out to Russ in Naperville, Illinois, Mark in Philadelphia on the stream tonight, along with everybody else around the country and around the world. So we're visiting with Ed Eyestone, and he's revealing his 5 ways that we could start running for exercise in a smart way. We've come to number 5.
Come to number 5. I think gradual adaptation. So you don't have to do it all overnight. And I think where people run into problems is they go from running 3 miles a day to 10 miles a day, that's a mistake, okay? So gradual adaptation, but I think gradually we become calloused at the distances and the times that we're running, and without varying things or maybe increasing, then it's hard to get the same workout. So I would say gradually increase the distance you run, gradually increase the pace that you run, because it's naturally going to become easier for you to run 4 miles than it used to be to only run 2 miles. So you gradually increase that. I like doing one day a week where it's a little bit longer too, okay? So maybe the kind of general rule of thumb for most long runs is you take the longest run of the week and do maybe 1.5 times that once a week. So maybe you're Saturday, and typically with runners, it's the Saturday or Sunday long run they talk about. And yeah, obviously at BYU, we don't do the Sunday run. We just do it on 6 days. But Saturday is usually that long run for us, where the guys will usually run about 1.5 times longer than what their normal run is. So if they are usually doing 8 to 10 miles, then they'll be on that Saturday long run, maybe 15 miles.
Here's a question, tips if you have bad asthma and you're trying to run.
Well, consult a doctor, get the right inhaler, but it's not unusual to see runners with inhalers and haven't taken their couple puffs before their workout or their race. I mean, even at the elite level, you're seeing some runners now using inhalers.
Okay, that's good to know.
When you're training for a marathon, and you were an Olympic marathoner, do you ever, in the lead up to a race, so say you're training for the Olympics, do you ever go run further than a marathon, or do you ever even actually run a marathon, or do you do different things along the way, and then you just run the full distance at the race? That's always interesting to me.
Yeah, well, Connor Mance and Clayton Young, who are the two elite marathoners, two of the elite marathoners that I'm working with right now, and they're BYU products, so I use their names. Typically, when they're in their 16-week build, then they'll have 8 to 10 weeks where they're bouncing between 20 and 25 every weekend. So, and as when I was making Olympic teams, it wasn't unusual for me to go on 25-mile runs every other week. Now, you take the long run, the 25-miler, and you every other week maybe drop it down to 20 or 22 miles, just so. But yeah, that's so essentially you're running a marathon, at least at the world class level. You're running one. Finishing the distance is not a problem for these guys. It's running at the pace that they need to, which is getting faster and faster every year.
Yeah, it's wild.
One of the most successful coaches in BYU history with us tonight, Ed Eyestone. It's great to have you here.
Yeah,
it's been fun, and I love it, and it's came here in 2000 and had some great experiences early on, and it's just when you surround, I'm a big believer of that, surround yourself with greatness, and certainly coming to work at BYU, you have that opportunity, and not only with the staff that I get to work with and the trainers and the administration, but obviously the secret sauce, the athletes. You get that, so it gives you a lot of juice and it keeps you going, and it's fun, and it's fun to look forward to the future.
Well, you and Elder Clark Gilbert are the only two to ever wear a tie on this show.
Yeah,
really?
You look
right.
fantastic.
Wow.
Nice job.
They just come and they realize I've never worn shoes on the show. So
Blaine hardly gets dressed to come on this show.
I was planning to get on some sweats, but then I was still at school. I did not want to drive home and change.
No. What do you think of our place?
I think this is pretty good. We need to get a little track and field and cross.
We do need some.
We could use some gear for that.
Here.
Yeah,
I don't know
sure.
we could bring you our national championship trophy, but,
or a replica,
That's pretty awesome.
But we'll put anything you send us. We'll put up here.
But, hey, we'll hang some BYU track and field gear up here. So
it's fun to flip a switch and talk to BYU fans all over the world in a unique format, and to get a long form interview with you like this is money. So
we love it, and our folks all around the world, from Japan to Singapore to South America, love hearing from our coaches and love hearing from you.
Well, happy to do it, and we've been on lately we've been on a pretty good international stage with our BYU athletes.
Absolutely.
So we're excited for that. We want to continue that in the future, and I know makes people excited when you have a rooting interest. I mean, who was not jumping off their couch when they saw Kenneth Rooks take the lead that last lap of the Olympic Games?
One of the greatest sports moments I've seen in the last couple of years. It was amazing.
It truly was. It truly was. And we want more of that in the future, and we're trying to produce more of that in the future, and I think we will have more of that in the future.
What's awesome is those guys can also turn around a few nights later and pack a fireside and deliver a message about the purpose of life. They're just fun to be around.
You know what? They have it all packaged together. You know, had I had my head on that straight when I was that young, it would have been great, or even now. But just great young people, and it's fun to be older and look up to these people for the greatness that they are bringing.
Yeah, and they've been great to us. A lot of your great athletes have come on the show with us and have been so good to give access to the fans around the world that support them.
Cool.
John says Ed Eyestone's a Cougar treasure. So with that, you are dismissed.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank
Go
you.
put some
Coach.
sweats on, give Lynn a hug for us, and
Will do.
It was fun to see you guys at the basketball games supporting the basketball team the other night.
Yeah, we're always going to be there.
Yeah, and Lynn were there. Brendan and I were there, and we saw him coming in. That was a fun night. So.
Oh yeah. Well, let's have more of that success. We know the financial engine that drives the university and provides for the opportunities that we have in track and field. So we're very grateful for our football teams, our basketball teams, and when they do well, because it allows us to continue to do the things that we love. So go Cougars.
Well said.
Go Cougs.
The
Thanks,
great
Ed.
Ed Eyestone, director of track and field. National champions. They got the Big 12 championships coming up this week, the NCAA championships with the indoor events in 2 weeks. Then it's the outdoor season. Then we're back talking cross country. They're always running around the area here in Provo, so you know when the Cougars are out and about. And we thank the coach for joining us. That was fantastic.
Yeah, so fun to have that in.
As he always is. And we talked a little bit about his Olympic running last time. So we were all business tonight, but that guy's got some amazing stories. Thank you for watching The Wise Guy.
If you like what you're watching, you can help us out by subscribing and hitting that notification button.